start from the bottom here with your bottom 5 teams who you have updated as the Bears as the bottom of the barrel, followed by Carolina, the Broncos, the Jets, and Texans. Take us through it.
Well, I mean, when I write up my numbers, everything is predicated on what I believe are the key indicators that go towards winning. And we can only go to 32 because that's all the categories, that's all the teams there are. And so some teams, are less. That's why when the point spreads get really wider, it's difficult for me to handicap because they only go as low. But Chicago is by far, I mean, the next closest team to Chicago, when you look at that, the Panthers, there's almost a 50-point differential, which is really rare. I mean, they're bad in almost every single category. It's really shocking when you do it, when you go through it and you look at all the things that matter, whether it's sack percentage, whether it's red zone attempts, because red zone production, it really doesn't tell you anything because if you don't get down there, what is that? That means you're not moving the football, right? So, you got to get there to be able to have an attempt. So go through all that. And then obviously the Texans moved up, but their defense still is not quite where it needs to be in terms of numerical grades. The Broncos moved way down. The Jets moved way down because when their numbers just come in, they're offensively, the Broncos are understandable. When you give up 700 points, your numbers are going to gyrate in a completely bad direction. 700 yards, I meant. I'm sorry, not 700 good. Points. 70 points, 700 yards. They had the sevens down cold.
Yep.
And then, and then, like I said, the Texans have improved. They're up to 28. So I think the list is, there is a difference between 32 to 28, and there isn't that much of a difference between 28 and 27, so which is good news, right? That's the good news if you're the Texans. You're slowly moving your way back up the ladder.
And the Giants were a team, meanwhile, that moves out of your bottom 5 despite an 18-point loss in San Francisco, where they were outgained in total yards 441 to 150. So I think that says a lot to me that they somehow improved on your list despite that type of a loss. And the Texans, who won their game, are moving up, but not enough to be better than the Giants. I wonder what was kind of the distinguisher between those two teams.
Well, the difference between the Giants and New York, Houston and the Giants are 1 point.
Okay, so right there, there.
I could have easily put the Giants, but
yep.
when I sort it out, it comes out. I let the Excel spreadsheet sort it. I don't play around with it and let it come out that way, which then allows me, because that line, it then allows me to see the line as it relates to who they're playing. And, and some of these lines are really tight, and some of them there's a little bit of a margin based on the point spread.
So for you, when you look at this Bears-Broncos game coming up this week, both teams 0-3 straight up and against the number, playing each other, but the Broncos are a road favorite out there at Soldier Field. These are two teams that are your bottom 3 in the entire National Football League. Does that make it a stay away for you, or do you feel like it is truly advantage Broncos?
Well, I have the Broncos should be a 5.3-point favorite based on even what they're bad as their numbers are.
Wow. And
the line's 3. So now in my number, I don't equate for home field. I think it's already built into the layer. So if you took away 2 points for Soldier Field, then my number would match up to the number that's on the board. But I don't think that's really relevant. I think there'll be more boos in Chicago than there will be loud cheers. But look, I mean, Denver's embarrassed. Denver can move the football. I mean, Denver did move the ball. They just, I never saw an effort like that on defense. In fact, I had one GM, we were talking today about it. Like, I've never seen that kind of horrible play by a team that lasted 60 minutes like it did. I mean, it's embarrassing to everybody in the organization. I mean, they can't really relate to it. They can't handle this. I mean, it's just too bad. They got to come out and play a lot better.
Yeah, the defense was abysmal. I can't imagine being one of those guys on the flight back all the way from Miami to Denver. That's a long road, and it must have been an ugly, uncomfortable flight.
I mean, if that would have been with me and the Raiders, I don't know if anybody would have been allowed on that flight except for Mr. Davis and his family. I think that would have been they'd have left everybody there.
Home. Get your own way home.
That would have been a bad one. Ooh, man.
Yeah. I believe it. Okay,
Southwest Airlines. Here you go. Buy your own ticket.
So bad. Pick your own seat. Stuck in a middle seat, 300-pound offensive lineman. It was that kind of day. Let's go from worst to best here in your top 5 in the National Football League, because I do think this is an interesting conversation topic. You still have the Dallas Cowboys ranked as your top team at this point for the 3rd straight week, despite being upset by the Arizona Cardinals. Kansas City is up from 4 to 2 after obviously embarrassing the Bears that they did this past weekend. Bills up from 4. San Francisco, despite another win and being one of the 3 remaining undefeated teams, gets bumped down to 4. And Miami has cracked the top 5 for the first time this season in your rankings, but only number 5, despite putting up 70 points.
Well, look, my numbers are not based on who won last week. You know, that's where everybody else does their power rankings. And if you like that, that's where you're going to get a mistake in the betting world. Because if you're reacting to a win, you know, and you move a team up, what was the win? How did they win? How did they play? The difference between Dallas and San Francisco on my rankings are 12 points. 12 points.
Really?
So you could have made San Francisco 1. You know, if I would have just said, okay, based on last week, who should I make 1? I'll make San Francisco 1. I'll make Kansas City 2. I'll make Buffalo 3, and I'll make Dallas 4. I just went with the numbers. I just put them out the numbers. I don't care who ridicules it. They're not the best team in football. They lost to Arizona. Their numbers say they're good. And they're slightly ahead of the San Francisco 49ers, who are in 4th place, and they're only 12 points behind them. So if they played against one another, it would be the line would be pretty much what the line would be. It'd probably be a 2-point line in one direction, depending on where they played. Miami's a little bit outside of this. Cleveland's a little bit outside of this. Baltimore. You say, well, where's Philly? Where's Philly? Philly's numbers have not been good. Even though they're 3-0, Nick Sirianni's admitted, their head coach, they haven't played their best football. Mm-hmm. And that shows up in the numbers. And these numbers are not about, well, you know, they're blowing people out so people are getting junk yards. No. That's not what the numbers tell you. So, you know, this is why you have to objectively come up with your own numbers and not base it off of win-loss record and what the perception is out there in the media. Because the media every week are going to change. I mean, one week Colorado's going to beat Oregon by 20. The next week they're going to lose. You know, it's like you can't go by that. You have to take subjectivity out of it.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.